Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to episode 2 in our Graham Parker series. Tonight, John Borack joins me, and we're looking at the years 1981 to 1992. We want to hear from you in the chat. Let's do it.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome John Borack back to the channel. John, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm doing great. How about you?
Hey, doing good. John is back, and we are going to continue our discussion on Graham Parker. Now, if anybody caught the last show, last time we dealt with Graham Parker in the 70s. This episode, we're going to talk about Graham Parker in the 80s up to 1992. So, first album, and I could go through the whole background of Graham Parker, but we did that on the other episode. You can go back and check that out. Tonight, we're going to continue on where we left off, because we left off in 1980, but tonight, we are in 1982 with the album Another Gray Area. So, this one was produced by Jack Douglas, which I'm a big fan of Jack Douglas, Cheap Trick. Mm-hmm. Jack did the Knack. He did the Knack Round Trip. He did a lot of great stuff. So, you know,
he also produced some guy named John Lennon.
Never heard of him.
Oh, no.
Never heard of that guy.
Actually, 2 years before this, Double Fantasy.
Yeah. So Jack was busy during this period. So anyway, he got a hold of Graham Parker in 1982, Another Gray Area. I'm going to throw it over to John. John, what's your thoughts on this record?
Well, first of all, it was Graham's first record without the Rumour. And so that alone made it sound quite different than his previous releases. But this one, I think they were just trying for some really big hits. I don't know. It was a completely glossy sort of sound. And it does kind of have that similar sheen to it, like Lennon and Ono's Double Fantasy did. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, a lot of the same people who were on Double Fantasy play on this record. George Small, keyboards, Hugh McCracken, electric guitars. So it kind of has that sound, and it's a really pretty record. And I think Graham has said that himself. You know, it's really pleasant to listen to, but kind of a shock if you were expecting, you know, anything that sounded even remotely like the Rumour, because it does not.
It does not. But this was after Graham This was after Graham Parker relocated to New York. Do you think that had a lot to do with the way this record sounds when you listen to it? Or you just think maybe that Graham Parker's just moving into like a new era? Well, we don't have the Rumour on here anymore. I mean, things change.
A combination of things. I think it was his move. I think it was not having the Rumour playing with him, but also it was the 80s, you know, and records sounded a lot different. And boy, when we get deeper into this catalog later in this episode, there's one that really sounds very 80s, but this one kind of had that radio ready early 80s sort of sound to it. And, you know, the single was Temporary Beauty, which is a beautiful song, one of his best, I think.
Got up to the top 50 in the UK. So
yeah, but didn't do much here, unfortunately. No. But really pretty song. There's a few songs on here where you think, boy, I'd love to hear the Rumour tackle this one. One in particular is called Big Fat Zero, which is your typical Graham Parker rant, which he does so well. But it sounds really tame. You know, the production kind of reins it in a little bit here. And you know, I've heard live versions. There was a BBC Rock Hour released not long after this album came out. There's a version of Big Fat Zero on there with his touring band who he had at the time, and it just kicks ass. But on the record, not much ass was kicked, unfortunately.
Much ass was kicked. Well, you know, Graham was always the critic's darling. You know, all that 70s material. You know, you always bring up Rolling Stone. You know, one of the 500 greatest albums of all time. Graham Parker's always mentioned. It seems like Graham is entering a new era, along with a lot of other bands. You know, a lot of these 70s bands, I'm going to grouping in with the 70s. That's where he started. But they do have to make that shift into the 80s, you know. Some bands made that shift better than others. This, I think, is the beginning of it. I mean, like you said, this has much smoother sound. He's trying to appeal to a broader audience. It's a transition. I find this a transitional. This is transitional. This is the album I think that signifies, oh, well, the old Graham of the 70s, the Rumor's gone. We're right in a transitional period. I don't
Yeah.
have a problem with this. I don't mind the a little bit more of the smoother, more professional sound, I guess, if you want to call it. But it's not as slick as we're going to get. So, but this record doesn't bother me so much.
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I
Right.
mean, like I said, if you purchase this expecting it to sound like Heat Treatment or Howlin' Wind,
You're not
you're
getting
going to be
that.
sorely disappointed. But if you kept an open mind, and just listen to the songs,
Right.
they're really great songs.
Yeah. Again, yeah, the songwriting's there. It's just the production's a bit different.
Yeah,
And normally,
and this sort of started his revolving wheel of producers and labels all throughout the '80s. It was kind of crazy. He didn't stick with one producer very long. He was constantly trying different things, trying different producers, and striving for that big breakthrough that unfortunately never really came.
well, since you brought that up, how do you feel about the fact that he is just rotating producers? Do you find that he's just trying to find? Is Graham just? I don't want to use the term. Is he trying to find his way? But it almost sounds like he's just trying to find that perfect match. So finally, I can really have some success. Maybe
Yeah.
it could be interpreted that way. How do you
Yeah,
look at it? I mean,
and again, it was probably partially him and partially the label.
mhm.
Because labels, had a lot of pull in those days. They could tell you who they wanted to produce your album. And even if you didn't want them to produce the album, that didn't always matter, Yeah. This I kind of look at it as a sort of a transitional album. But what a
I do too.
transition from the Up Escalator and Squeezing Out Sparks
Yeah, it's
to,
quite.
to this one. But,
I don't think it's a bad record by any means.
no, I like it a lot.
Well, by 1983, we have the Real Macaw, produced by David Kirschenbaum, who, if anybody remembers that name, he did do the last Marshall Crenshaw album that Marshall did for, his last major label album, which I like that album quite a bit. And Brinsley Schwartz is also back on this record.
Yeah.
You've got Gilson Lavis from Squeeze on drums, another record recorded in New York. He's continuing that New York thing since he's made that leap to the States. Another record, guitar-driven rock, new wave soul influences. But do you find this a bit? I don't know. I find this like a bit less polished than another
Yeah.
gray area.
Yeah, it's not quite as slick. It's similar in tone to another gray area. I mean, there's some almost kind of reggae-ish songs here. There's some soul. There's some pop. There's a song that I think should have been a hit single, Life Gets Better, which was just one of his best songs, I think.
Oh, it's optimistic sound. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
One of his
Totally.
best songs, definitely
Totally.
on this record. I mean, hell, that makes this record worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah.
That track. You Can't Take Love for Granted's another good track. I think this, just based on my research, and doing research for this stuff, I think this record did, according to the critics, they like this record a little bit better than the previous record. It got 59 in the US charts, didn't chart in the UK, which I find very kind of strange for a Graham Parker album not to chart in the UK. But,
you can never. Well, there's no accounting for taste as far as record buyers go.
right.
Who knows why?
Well, every band, every artist they have ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
He probably already had his. Well, I'm not going to say that. We're not through the catalog yet, ladies and gentlemen. I can't brush ahead. But this could signal a commercial decline, possibly. But anyway, what's your thoughts on this album?
I like it. I don't like it as much as the previous one.
Okay.
Not as many songs that I really love on this one. I mean, Life Gets Better, like we said, great song. You Can't Take Love for Granted kind of has that light soul sort of influence that Graham does so well. The last track, Too Late, the Smart Bomb, is kind of a dance track, which was kind of a departure. Think about Graham Parker burning up the dance floor with his tunes, but he was just trying different things, and yeah, it's not a bad album. Robert Christgau, what kind of the dean of rock critics, he gave it a B plus. So that's probably what I'd say too, B or a B plus.
But still, that's not bad by any means.
No,
And Christgau, of course, Christgau loves Graham Parker, but that's pretty good coming from him. So, I mean, if you see it out, if you're just getting into this in Graham Parker's catalog, and if you see it out in the wild, go ahead and grab it. I mean, like I said, you can't take love for granted, for goodness sakes.
yeah.
Great track. What do you think of David Kirschenbaum's production? I mean, good producer for Graham. Well, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
He did. It's funny because he also did some work with Joe Jackson, which, a lot of people kind of lumped
Did he do?
Graham in with Joe Jackson back in the day.
He did. Didn't he do Big World? Or am I?
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but I know he's worked with, Tracy Chapman as well. So a lot of popular 80s artists. And, I don't know, it was okay. I mean, it didn't bother me, but it didn't really trip my trigger either.
Yeah. Well, as we keep going into the 80s, there's a lot of, there's some good things that happen. There's some things that didn't work out so well. It happens to a lot of people. By 1985, we've got the album Steady Nerves. Now, this is credited to Graham Parker and The Shot. And
Yes.
I'm not sure. Well, it's Brinley Schwartz, George Small, Kevin Jenkins, Michael Brahm. Another record recorded it in New York.
Yeah, this one was produced by William Whitman, who
who did he work with? I don't
I think he engineered She's So Unusual, the Cyndi Lauper record that had come out the year before. And but I don't think you could find two artists as polar opposite as Cyndi Lauper and Graham Parker. But I don't know. This album to me is his worst of the 80s. But even saying that, it's not a bad album.
It's very polished, John.
Oh,
very
polished
pop rock.
Yeah.
Well, all right,
it
so
has that really.
It's like
annoying...
pop rock with new wave and soul elements sprinkled on top. And when I listen to this record, it's like, let's make a record for airplay. Let's get this sucker on the radio. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bad thing about it has that really dated 1980s drum sound to it, which kind of overpowers everything. And so many records had that back then. The Kinks give the people what they want.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Probably the worst drum sound of any record I've ever heard. Sounds like they recorded the snare drums inside a gymnasium.
And that's
this is not quite that bad, but it's the drum sound is a little bit annoying.
But I brought this up before in different shows. In fact, I brought it up earlier today on a show we had on the Contrarians, is that the 80s production is fine for certain artists. If you're listening to the Thompson Twins and they came out in the 80s, it seems appropriate. Flock of Seagulls, it's appropriate. But when you have legacy bands, and I'm going to put Graham Parker in there, from the 70s, and you're making that transition, it's a little tough to take because you are accustomed to a certain sound. Had it been another artist, it would probably, if Graham Parker came out in the 80s, we would have been accustomed to it. But, a lot of those bands, you listen to like the Stones 80s stuff, and I'm going, gee, many.
Oh, yeah.
Just hard for those old bands to make that transition.
Yeah. You mentioned Stones in the 80s, and I was just thinking of that song, Undercover of the Night.
Yeah, I kind of like that song, but.
I like it too, but it's got like every 80s cliche thrown in there.
And it is not weathered well. Well, think about this, John. Back then, they played it all the time. You couldn't escape it.
Yeah.
Now you never hear a peep of it at all.
Never hear it.
Never hear it. But, I just don't think... I think this record's okay, but it almost, when I listen to it, almost seems like we're really trying hard, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And it was also his first record for a new label as well, on Elektra. So I'm sure they wanted to, put him out there. And one song was a minor hit I mean, Wake Up Next to You, that was a minor hit. I used to hear that on the radio. And that's a really pretty sort of Motown soul influenced song. That's probably my favorite one on the record. Break Them Down is a really good rocker. The Weekend's Too Short, I think, is a really good rocker. Everything Graham does, if only for the lyrics, is worth listening to, I think. I mean, I can't say I've ever really heard a bad Graham Parker song. There's some I like more than others.
No, but accessibility wise, I mean, this is very accessible. You still have his strong songwriting here. Critics at the time, generally it was positive, but during this whole 80s period, he's getting a lot of mixed reviews. Other than Chris Scow, he probably just thought it was just phenomenal. It did get up to 42 in the States.
Yeah.
So something must have been right.
And I think that was his last relatively high charting album. I don't think there was anything really after that.
I don't think so. Well,
I can't recall any. I mean, but I like the albums that came immediately after that one much better than Steady Nerves, for sure.
But I would say probably his most commercially viable 80s record. I mean, it's radio friendly. But it does lack the 1970s, that intensity, that raw intensity of his 70s stuff. There's something missing here.
Yeah.
But still, songwriting's good. If you can get over the production.
Yeah.
It still has something for everybody here. If you like Graham, I mean, you need this record.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think the production kind of overpowers everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it hasn't aged well. Next record we're going to discuss is Mona Lisa's Sister from 1988. Now, this was produced by Graham and Brinsley Schwartz, and it's got members of the Rumour on it. So, you got Schwartz, you got Andrew Bodnar on here, Steve and Pete from the Elvis Costello band are on it.
Yeah, and Terry Williams from Rockpile and Dire Straits.
Love Terry Williams. Love Rockpile. Oh my God, that's a whole other show. This, I know Rolling Stone, and I mentioned Rolling Stone and people laugh, but it was ranked 97 in the Rolling Stones 100 greatest albums of the 80s.
Yeah.
So I think,
Chris Gow
is Graham back? That's my question.
Chris Gow gave it a C+, which I think he's full of crap. I think this is a much better album.
100%.
I think this is probably one of his best albums of the decade, honestly.
I would agree with you.
On it. It's kind of a more laid back, it's kind of laid back, but still rocking.
It's much more stripped down too, John.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that production gloss like we just went through.
Right.
And I think because of that, you can focus more on Graham's songs, his vocals, the songwriting, because it's very raw and it's very direct, and I think, if you're going to stack up earlier albums, this would fit. I think this would back right up to his later 70s records. You could just put this right in, it would fit right in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I totally agree. There's so many great songs on this record, and there's also a wonderful cover of the Sam Cooke song Cupid, which ends the album, which fits in here perfectly. I mean, just so many great songs. My favorite on here is probably OK Hieronymus, which is a really catchy pop song. But that was always kind of Graham's problem, I think, in terms of trying to get a top 40 hit or labels trying to break him, is that, boy, the music was catchy, but the lyrics, probably a lot of people didn't understand them or get them or whatever, because he had some really outstanding sort of direct lyrics. And, it wasn't your typical top 40, Cyndi Lauper, I Love You, Love Me kind of stuff. It was, a little bit more pointed. And the lyrics, I think the lyrics complement the music perfectly, but it's not a top 40 sort of sound.
No. But, at the time, people were praising it as a return to form, and I can totally see that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Again, there's something about it. Is it because he's reunited with his former bandmates? We've got a lot of great players on this record. Evidently, when I listen to this record, it sounds like everybody's glad to be back together. All the guests that are on it all work out well, and just there's a certain excitement and raw energy on this record.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's a good vibe to me.
Yeah, and he's out of New York. This
Yep.
one was recorded in London. And so it just seems like more of a relaxed record.
Yes.
I mean, not lazy, because there's a fine line, but just more relaxed. And he's on another new label. He's on RCA now.
I just have to chuckle. He just goes from label to label.
Oh, I know. But I think they let him do what he wanted to do and let him make this record the way he wanted to make it, which is why I think it's such a good record. Another really cool song here is Under the Mask of Happiness, which was actually written about a murder case happened in North Carolina in 1970. A guy named Jeffrey McDonald. I think he was an Army captain. He killed his wife and his 2 young daughters. And they made a movie out of it called Fatal Vision. And Graham wrote a song based on that. And that's Under the Mask of Happiness, a really powerful tune.
Yeah. Good record. Highly recommended. I mean, if you get any 80s albums, you got to have this one, as far as I'm concerned.
For sure.
We're just zipping through. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in 1989 looking at the album Human Soul. So this was produced by Graham and John Jacobs with Brindley Schwartz. Let's see. Oh, I lost. God, Grant, brain problem. Let me start. God, Jesus.
It happens.
I was on a roll. Now my brain quit working. Let me start over. All right. So now, okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we are in 1989. We're going to look at the album Human Soul. This was produced by Parker and John Jacobs with Brindley Schwartz until his departure post-album. Anyway, so Andrew Bodnar and Pete Thomas are also on this. Another record for RCA. What's your thoughts on this one?
I like it. You know, I must be like the anti-Robert Christgau because he gave this one a C. And I think it's another really good record. It's got some really great songs on it. Kind of a little bit of a medley, almost like an Abbey Road-esque sort of medley towards the end. But he's got some really good stuff. I mean, Little Misunderstandings, kind of a swinging soul song.
Punchy.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of White Honey from his early days. Soul Time is a really good song. Green Monkeys, you know, Slash and Burn. It's a good record. I mean, it's definitely not a C. It's above average in my book.
Well, you know, I think he's on a roll. I'm not sure what would be so critical about it because I think it's just kind of continuing on from where, you know, Mona Lisa's sister kind of, I mean, it's not that far off from that.
Right.
It's unpolished. You still have that mix of rock, pop, and soul. I don't know. I still hear a little bit of new wave. I know we're in 1989. New wave doesn't exist anymore, but I still hear a little bit of that in there. I think I'm not sure what the criticism would be. I think the critics, I think at the time, thought that there was a lot of inconsistent songwriting. I don't detect that on this record at all.
Yeah.
I think it's just another great set of tracks. You know, we all hear this stuff differently, ladies and gentlemen. So literally, if you know this record, what are your thoughts on any of these records? John and I do want to know what you think of these records. So if you can add to the conversation, please do.
What I think of this one is, unlike a lot of his other records that we've already talked about, this one didn't have a particular, at least to me, didn't have a standout cut on it.
Well, maybe
that all really good, but nothing stood head and shoulders above the rest to me. But it was all good. It's a good album.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, but maybe that was the problem. I mean, after this, RCA dropped him onto the next label. Yeah. But maybe that was part of the problem. There wasn't really a solid single on here that leaped out of the grooves like on the previous records. I still have no issue with it, you know.
Yeah. I know I just read something that said he toured with Dave Edmunds. Toured this album with Dave Edmunds, and I remember seeing that show, and it was
cool.
A very good show. Very good show.
God, where'd you see them? Where were they?
It was in Orange County, California.
Okay. Yeah, you get to see all the cool stuff.
Yeah. It was a great show. I mean, they're two of my favorite artists, so yeah.
I wonder how Dave Edmunds is doing after
Yeah, I
Heard
don't know. You know,
anything?
you heard all those internet rumors, and he was gone, then he wasn't gone. He was sick, but now he's out of the hospital. And, you know, the guy's in his 80s, so just
Mhm.
hopefully he's comfortable, you know?
Yeah, but absolutely, that's one of those artists, though. No one ever talks enough about Dave Edmunds and his body of work. You know, golly,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
yeah, it's a whole other show. Love Dave Edmunds. God, I have one of his what's the promo poster I've got? I've got a promo poster that I had since the 80s. You remember the Information album?
oh,
Yeah.
produced by Jeff Lynne.
Yeah, I've got that big promo poster of that.
Oh, that's great.
Well, love Dave.
Right.
Anyway, so there you go. That sums up the 80s. And I think it could have been a bigger bang, I guess, to sum up the 80s. But I mean, there's a couple of good records in this era that really stand out. 1991, the album Struck by Lightning. This was recorded in Woodstock, New York, produced by Parker with Andrew Benar, Pete Thomas, and Garth Hudson makes an appearance on this record, and John Sebastian. If you're going to be in Woodstock, New York, John, you might as well bring everybody here.
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
This is kind of cool. Well, wait a minute. Was this the last RCA album? Remind
I
me.
believe, let's see, Burning Questions, was that on RCA? No, Burning Questions was on Capitol. So this was the last RCA.
This is the last RCA album, and then they dropped him with poor sales. But interesting thing about this is that Graham is playing all the guitars on this record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm cool with
very,
that.
Very sort of low key record, but it's got some of his best melodies on there and probably one of his, well, you know, you don't use the word gorgeous very often when talking about Graham Parker songs, but I think the song Strong Winds is,
Gorgeous.
I'm getting chills just talking about it. Seriously, it's just weird, but it's a beautiful song and something that, you know, people need to hear if they haven't heard it.
Yeah, you know, after we've went through the 80s and all the 80s production and all that, we're really going through a different musical styling with this record because this is much more acoustic driven rock. You know, there's folk and country elements here. And I do think that the songwriting is a lot more introspective. This thing is a lot less aggressive than the earlier Graham Parker that you know and love.
Yeah.
This is a more mature.
And I think being
Graham
married
Parker.
and having a child had something to do with that.
Sure, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, it does because you know if you look at a lot of the themes, aging and talks about family life, personal struggles. Yeah, well, his life's changing. You know, family. You know, he's It just reflects his life.
Yeah. I mean, he was always sort of like John Lennon in that respect. He wrote about himself, or he wrote about things. He didn't make a lot of stuff up. You know, like Paul McCartney would make up these characters, but Graham didn't really do that. He wrote about his own life and what he was going through and what he thought. And yeah, it's a long record too. I think 15 tracks, and it's there's a lot of great stuff on there for sure.
Right. I doubt this ever got 91. 91's when they vinyl production pretty much ceased. So I don't know if I'm trying to remember if I've even seen this on vinyl. I'm not even sure it got pressed on vinyl back in the day.
I don't know. I wish it would.
It'd be a 2-record set.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But anyway, I think this was well received. I think critics liked where he was going with this, liked the stripped down sound. Got to 131 in the US.
Yeah.
Best selling album of the 90s. But he still got dropped from RCA.
Yeah, and then he went over to Capitol for Burning Soul the next year.
1992. Produced by Parker and John Jacobs, backed by the Small Clubs.
Yeah.
Andrew Benar, Pete Thomas. A lot of the same cast of characters that we've had before. Yep, released on Capitol, which dropped Parker after its failure to sell. Should note that too. I just feel bad for the guy. Anyway, this is roots rock, soul, pop influences. I like the arrangements on here. I think it sounds great. Sounds very warm. But it's not, we're in a different era again with Graham, and it's not quite as dynamic as his other records, but I don't know. I think it's a decent record. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and again, it's low key. It's not going to it's not going to reach out and smack you in the mouth like the early ones did. But I'm just looking at who's on the record here. Yeah, Andrew Bodner on bass, and again, Graham's playing all the guitars and the harmonica. He's got a string quartet here, which is, if you would have told me in 1977 Graham Parker would be recording with a string quartet,
You
I would
would
have
have.
told you were nuts. But
Yes.
people mature and songwriting matures, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that at all. Another really beautiful song on here, excuse me, it's called Long Stem Rose.
The strings. Oh,
Yeah, really pretty song. This to me is not quite as good as Struck by Lightning, but it's still a very solid Graham Parker record.
yeah. Yeah. Songs are soulful. What's your thought about Just Like Joe Meek's Blues? Don't you think that that's just kind of odd that he put a track on here that's a nod to Joe Meek, the producer? I kind of dig it.
Yeah, I mean, Graham's lyrics are always worth listening to, and you can read them, and they read like poetry, and I just, some of the stuff, some stuff you laugh at, some stuff you think, oh yeah, he's right, that kind of stuff. But it's always worth listening to. Yeah, Just Like Joe Meek's Blues. I'm looking at my head was swimming in a Bangkok joint. You got paint on your coat like an arrow point. I mean, just who else writes that kind of stuff?
Writes like that.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
And again, for some reason, the critics didn't like this record. I'm looking at some reviews here: 2 out of 5, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, C+. Again,
It's very mixed,
but not that bad.
Yeah.
Not that bad at all.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with this record at all. It just continues in that commercial decline, because he does get dropped again, and it didn't chart. I mean, the guy can't get a break. The people who get Graham Parker, but then there's a lot of people that evidently didn't.
Don't. Yeah. One thing did happen the year after this came out. There was a anthology that was released. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, there I see it.
Passion is No Ordinary Word, the Graham Parker anthology, 1976 through 1991. If someone doesn't really know Graham Parker's music and is looking for a place to jump in, that is the perfect place to jump in. There's tons of compilations, tons of live albums, but for that era, it's got everything on it pretty much you would need to hear or want to hear. A great track list. It's two CDs, 39 songs. Just a lot of really good stuff.
So that's a good point. You could start there. See if that's in your ballpark. Because, we're always we like physical media here, let's be honest. Yep. We always like to explore this stuff. We love to, just try to turn you on to something that maybe this might be in your ballpark if you haven't heard any Graham Parker. But we've had quite an evolution just over from 1980 to 1980, from 92 here, Yeah. You went total from pub rock and new wave to, much more polished, commercial radio sounding Graham Parker, and a transition back to rootsy introspective material. It's quite a, there's a lot of variety on these records.
It's quite an evolution that he's gone through from, his early years up till now. I mean, he's still recording now. And his latest album was on Big Stir Records, Last Chance to Learn the Twist.
Yeah.
Another good record. That could have been released in 88 or 89, right around the Struck by Lightning time. It's not dated at all. I mean, it sounds like it could have been released back then, which I guess that's the opposite of being dated. I'm not really sure. But
depends on how you look at it. In a lot of ways, it's a good thing.
But yeah, it sounds great. So he's still out there doing it, and kind of slowed down a little bit after 92. It took him 3 years for his next album to come out. He didn't put out another one until 1995. And then another one in 96. Then he took 5 years off. He did a lot of touring. He did a really cool album, or a tour and an album with a group called the Figs, with 2 Gs, Figs, where he recorded with them, went on tour with them, and they were kind of a sort of a power pop punk sort of band.
I know
They,
the Figs?
yeah, I'm sure you do. They were on a major label.
I'm looking it up. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up. This is what we do on this show. We do a lot of looking up. Why
Mm-hmm.
does that ring a bell? Do
Yeah,
I
he
have
toured with them for a while. And then in 2005, he released an album with them backing him called Songs of No Consequence.
Man, if you look up the Figs, they have got quite the catalog. Oh
Yep.
my God.
They've been around. Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else because I don't recognize any of these records. Wow, they have quite a catalog. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. But that sort of gave him, I think, a little kick in the butt, a little bit of, a little bit of kind of an infusion of energy to do some more upbeat stuff. And then,
Hmm.
his tours at the time were very well received. And, he was there rocking out. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, he's got a great catalog. I mean, there's something in it for everybody. I mean, like I said, if you know the Graham Parker catalog, please make a comment down below. And like I said, we're just trying to turn people on to stuff. And we just like to talk music here in the warehouse. So there you go. John, anything else to add? What else is going on with you? Anything else people need to know about?
Oh, not much news since the last time. I'm going to have a new column in Goldmine magazine coming out pretty soon.
Okay.
Some new reviews. There's a great power pop compilation just came out on Cherry Red called "I Want to Be a Teen Again," a 3 CD set. So I'll be reviewing that. And yeah, looking forward to all this Beatles stuff that's coming out. There's a Wings compilation that was just announced today. I don't know why we need another Wings compilation.
I don't know, but what is this
we're getting
comp
it.
based on? I haven't heard that. What?
This is based on just the Wings stuff. So it's no solo McCartney, by himself. So there's no cuts from the McCartney album, none from Ram,
So
It
it's like
starts with
Wings' greatest
Wildlife.
hits.
Well, it starts with Wildlife in 71 and then goes to Back to the Egg in 79, and that's it. But all this stuff's been released before, so I'm not sure. Who knows? I don't know why Paul's people do what they do. But it's better than getting like the 8th reissue of Band on the Run, I suppose.
Well, all you need is that box set, I've got a lot of those McCartney boxes, the big ones.
And well, everyone's waiting for the London Town and Back to the Egg. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I'm not sure if we'll see any more of those or not, because I thought if you're going to see more of them, it would have happened by now.
Right. It's been at least, at least 7 or 8 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. I think Flaming Pie might have been the last one.
Yeah, I didn't get Flaming Pie, though. I love Flaming Pie as an album, though.
Yeah, but so that's coming out, and then the John Lennon compilation or the 1-to-1 concert in New York City is coming out. And then, of course, the Beatles anthology with another disc of tracks that didn't end up on the first 3 anthology records. I'll be reviewing that one for Goldmine as well.
Excellent. Be interesting to see that review because I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't remastering the original, whatever. And the tracks on the fourth, let's see, how many CDs is it going to be? 6?
Yeah, I think 4 albums and probably 6
CDs, however they break it up. But all the additional material, I'd have to hear it,
Yeah.
Because, Carnival of Light's not coming out. The 14-minute version of Helter Skelter's not coming out. A lot of the stuff that people want, they don't put out. Full version of 12 bar, what is it? 12 bar blues. What is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the one from the Rubber Soul session.
Yeah, the whole thing. We want the whole thing.
You know what I'd love to hear, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in the warehouse before, but there's a bit of tape. It's 20 minutes long, and it's on YouTube, so your listeners can look it up, of studio chatter from the Rubber Soul sessions, and they're trying to do the backing vocals on George's song, Think for Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the most entertaining thing. It's just hearing them banter, hearing them crack each other up, hearing John Lennon make jokes, and George is trying to rein them both in. Okay, come on, guys, we're trying to work on my track here, and they're just cracking each other up. And I listen to that at least once every 6 months because it just makes me happy to hear it.
I'm going to have to check it out. So
Yeah.
it's like a half an hour long of just
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes
Yeah.
of studio
About
banter
20 minutes.
from Rubber Soul era. I got to hear
Yeah.
that.
It's them trying to record the backing vocals to just that one song. And you hear George Martin come down and you've got to hear it. It's just really
Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, you have more things to check out on YouTube. Look for more offerings from John in Goldmine. He's a busy man. He's a scholar and a gentleman. I'm just a hack.
I don't think so.
Anyway, I'll get John back on here. We might want to look at Dave Edmunds. That might be kind of fun. I don't know. Think about it. There must be something we can talk about, John. There's lots.
Yeah.
All right, please like, subscribe if you haven't, and check out John's articles in Goldmine. All right, John, I'll talk to you later. We'll figure out something. See
Sounds
everybody.
good.
Keep it clean, wrap the rascal. You know how to do it. All right, see you everybody.